We have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put two dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coon. The white man to go nuts if he can't shoot. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Ahmadiyyah.
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They're trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
I'm getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your Daily Vitamins. And I have Mr. Andrew Wyatt here. This is Mr. Bill Cosby's publicist, and we're going to be talking about some of the allegations currently against Mr. Cosby, amongst other things. So, Andrew, feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, Queen Ahmadiyyah, it's a pleasure to be on your show. I love your opening, and I'm just thankful that you all have me. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone, is going to receive all of the blessings that the Most High has in store for you that you don't even know they exist. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. All right. Let's get those fire emojis in the chat. All right. Shout out to Christy Love, Kenyatta, that Crazy Beach Aries, Regina, Mr. Hotel, Lori Sims, Obsidian Blaze, Danny. All right. Shout out to Christopher. I see you, beloved. It says she is a beautiful queen. Thank you. All right. Shout out to everyone tuned into the Queen. So let's get into it. First things first, Andrew, I want to ask you about, I was watching this news report some months ago. It was back in November. Now, some more allegations came forward against Mr. Cosby due to the Adult Survivors Act. And then as I was watching this report, which, if you don't mind, I'm going to play it because they were talking about them changing the laws in Las Vegas as well. And now they've done so. And now there's 9 more suits, I believe.
Well, you're correct. What happened when the allegation started against Mr. Cosby in 2014? Gloria Allred came to us, and she is published. It's been well published in the L.A. Times and various publications, major mainstream publications. Where she said, Bill Cosby, if you give me $100 million, I would not parade any more women out against you. We will set up a panel of judges. And in that panel of judges, they would decide, they would listen to each alleged accuser's claim, and they would decide what, based on the claim and the allegation they're making, how much they should be awarded after $100 million. Now, of course, Mr. and Mrs. Cosby, said no to that and declined, and didn't even entertain her proposition.
I mean, that's teetering on the borderline of extortion.
Well, it is. It
Yeah.
is. But in the legal world, you can't use extortion because
Mm-hmm.
you could get sued by saying someone extorted you. But it was
Mm-hmm.
a true Ocean's 11 extortion tip.
Right.
And the strategy was to say, hey, we're on this money grab. And Bill Cosby became the litmus test for everything. Everything that you're seeing today, it derived from Mr. Cosby.
Mm-hmm.
Once they had that formula in place and they were able to get his honorary degrees rescinded, not only get the honorary degrees rescinded, they were able to go. Gloria Allred went to the legislature in Nevada
Mm-hmm.
and had them call it the Bill Cosby Act, where
Wow.
they did away in 2015, it's around 2015, 2016, they did away with statute of limitations and said that any woman, there was no statute of limitation, that if she said that someone raped her, they could come forward at any time, which is very dangerous,
It really
extremely
is.
dangerous, because in the Constitution, we have a statute of limitation in the Constitution to protect the person being accused and the person who has been a alleged victim. And
Absolutely.
so, what happened with Mr. Cosby, no one stood up. People sat on the sidelines and said, it's not going to ever happen to me. If you notice with him, Gloria Allred and her daughter, Lisa Bloom, they were able to parade nothing but white women out. When I
Mm-hmm.
brought that to the attention in mainstream media, that's what they were doing, they turned around and found Beverly Johnson. And they found Lisa Lott Loveland out of Nevada. They found Lily Bernard.
Mm-hmm.
All of these black women, where they sprinkled in a little black pepper after they sprinkled all the
Right.
salt, and they said, "Well, hey, now we're going to make it believable." I even had mainstream media people to reach out to me, Don Lemon. Well, now it's true. It's actually true because Beverly Johnson's an icon.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Cosby admitted that he never had Beverly at any of his homes, and for her to say that she drank the cup of coffee, and she said, and when she realized after she drank the cup of coffee, she looked at him and said, "How dare you?" And he picked her up and dragged her down a flight of stairs. If you go to any of their homes, she claimed this happened in a New York home,
Mm-hmm.
8 floors on the 71st East 71st Street house. To drag someone 8 floors, it's impossible unless they're dead.
That's crazy.
Unless they're dead. And he
Mm-hmm.
claims he threw her in the cab. Bill Cosby goes outside, hails a cab, throws her in the cab, and she didn't wake up for 3 days.
And the cab driver didn't say anything, think anything was suspicious. That's all crazy.
And this is
That
Beverly
doesn't even make
Johnson.
sense.
This is a supermodel, and she said she threw up in the cab, and the cab driver never questioned her. He dropped her off at her place she was staying at a hotel, and she slept for 3 days. No one ever heard from her.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody took the time to vet anything. And
Right.
if you look at Gloria Allred and her daughter Lisa Bloom,
Mm-hmm.
they were the same team. Lisa represented Harvey Weinstein. Had Harvey Weinstein admit to this in a letter of raping women or having sex with them without their permission,
Mm-hmm.
which is rape, had Harvey admit to it, but then had Harvey to say, I would give Lisa Bloom $300 to $400 million, and any woman that has a claim against me, they would settle it. So that the formula with Mr. Cosby was put in place for people like Gloria Allred and her daughter Lisa Bloom to create their own Brinks operation, their own Wells Fargo.
Yeah,
And
that's what it is.
what they do, they come out, as we know the history of America. It's been that from the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to destroy a black man in America, you use sex to destroy any black man in America.
That's
So,
right.
and that's why we got to this point. So when Mr. Cosby was found guilty in 2018, and he was put in prison, a level 5 maximum security prison, everything went away, so to speak, because Mr. Cosby was now incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
AIG, his insurance company, went behind our backs and they made settlements to Janice Dickinson and a lot of these women who had filed defamation suits against Mr. Cosby because his attorneys denied the allegation. He never said a word. His attorney spoke for him, and they sued his attorney, Marty Singer, because they said Marty speaking for Mr. Cosby was defaming them. So AIG got scared because they were supplementing everybody during the criminal trials because it was to their benefit to help us win those trials. They were paying the legal bills. They were doing all of those things.
Right.
Well, when Mr. Cosby was incarcerated, then there's no insurance company. The women went away because they said he would never get out of prison. They said he was going to die in prison. And since I was his only visitor, I would fly in every week and spend time with him. And he will always say to me, Andrew, the powers that be are going to figure a way to get you out of the picture. They're going to try to figure out a way to get you and I to divide, and you to divide from my family. But please don't let my legacy die in here. And the women couldn't file any suits because they didn't know when Mr. Cosby was going to get out.
Right.
They didn't know if he was going to ever get out. And as soon as I walked him out of that prison, that's when they came with this initiative and they put these look back windows in place. In Nevada, Los Angeles, New York, New Jersey. And these windows were put in place to say that any woman who has a claim against any man, if the statute of limitations have ran for criminal charges, you can, it doesn't matter, it could be 60, 70, 80 years ago. You could bring a civil suit against this particular individual, and you could sue them civilly. The burden of proof is on you, the plaintiff, and you have to prove that this happened. But in the culture and the climate that we live in today, and the social media climate we live in today, you're automatically deemed guilty before you step foot in that courtroom. So for what I have to do, I have to win things over and put information out there in the court of public opinion, because in today's world, nobody reads.
No, they read the headlines, but not the story.
They
That's
don't read
what most
the story,
people do.
and no one took the time to read the story. So right now, that look back window went in effect Thanksgiving 2022. It went into effect on Thanksgiving Day 2022 in New York City. Senator Holloman did that. He constructed the bill and the governor signed it into law. It expired last year on Thanksgiving Day. So in between that time, you have a total of maybe 13 to 14 women in Nevada because of the look back window who have filed civil suits against Mr. Cosby. You have a total of 13 to 14 in New York who's suing not only Mr. Cosby, Astoria Inc. That's where they shot the Cosby Show. They're saying that they was complicit in knowing that he was raping women on the set and drugging them and wouldn't say nothing. They're suing Warner Carsey. Tom Warner owns 25% of the Cosby Show in Different World, and Marcy Carsey owns 25% of the Cosby Show in a different world. But if you look at Tom Warner and Marcy Carsey's portfolio of television shows, they have shows, Roseanne, you name it. They've done, hundreds of shows. But with Bill Cosby, they got the largest distribution deal in the history of America. Tom Warner also owns the Boston Red Sox. So they're suing Warner Carsey. They're also suing NBC Universal. In LA, they're suing Bill Cosby and William Morris. William Morris Endeavors is owned by Ari Emanuel, who's the brother to Rahm Emanuel, who is Obama's chief of staff. So there goes the connection. And what they're doing, they're saying if we, the law firm that's doing this is the Merson law firm. They're the same law firm that sued the Jeffrey Epstein estate and got over $600 to $800 million off the estate. So what they're going to do is they're running billboards now on their website. If Bill Cosby raped or drugged you, please call this specific number. You could go to the Merson law firm website in New York. So it's unfortunate because now the Cosbys, they don't have the insurance carrier who could help them litigate these claims. So now they're having to go within their own assets, to go within their own retirement funds, their financial portfolio to fund these attorneys to fight these cases for them. And it would never end. And I tried to warn people in my interviews. I tried to warn people like Diddy, all of the people who you see now who are being charged. I was like, if Black America, the entertainment community in Black America, don't come together and stand as one, as white people do, they stand behind their own when somebody's coming out. Look, you look how long they've been coming against Kevin Spacey. He's still working today.
Yeah, and he keeps beating those cases too.
Yeah, keeps winning.
Keeps winning those cases. I don't see how, but he keeps doing it. Sure does.
He keeps doing it, and it's the system. I always tell everybody the law is a living organism. Those who created the law, they could change it every millisecond.
Yes.
So, but until we stand up and we come together as one, you know, we could talk about the problems all day, but what about the solutions?
Exactly. And the solution starts with us all coming together and being on one accord.
Right.
But unfortunately, some of our own people are our worst enemies in many cases. I mean, when you look at people like Oprah and Gayle King, I'm sorry, they're a problem as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you know, Mr. Cosby, I got a call from Gayle King's producers, and this was probably back in 2015, 2016. And it was August 3rd. Matter of fact, it was August 3rd, 2015. I know the exact date because it was on my birthday when the call came in. And Mr. Cosby got on the phone with Gayle, and they talked for 2.5 hours. And he said, Gayle, you all know me. He said, my wife gave Oprah her first interview to Lunch magazine. He said, not only because Gayle kept saying that Mr. Cosby didn't like her, he had a problem with her. And that was far from the truth. So I got Gayle on the phone, and it turned into almost a 3-hour conversation. And Gayle gave me her cell number and said, hey, you know, I will surf and look through all of these allegations, but she didn't. But Mr. Cosby had a very direct conversation with her. He said, Oprah lived with us at our Massachusetts compound.
Really?
He was at our home. Yeah, she would stay there with him.
Wow.
He would teach her how to sign the checks and tell her how she needed to build her empire. It's the same house that Miles Davis and Cicely Tyson got married at. And Ambassador Andy Young officiated the wedding at that home. So many prominent people have stayed with them in that Massachusetts home in Shelburne Falls. And he said to Oprah, he said to Gayle, he said, you and Oprah sat in my New York home and interviewed my wife to help launch magazine, because my wife felt that there needed to be a magazine out that was going to tell our stories, and also stories from the woman's perspective.
Right.
Because Mrs. Cosby was once 50% owner of Essence magazine before they sold to Time Warner. But you know, he had this conversation with Gayle, and he said, Gayle, you've been around me. I never hit on you. I just don't understand what he said to Gayle. He said, I don't understand how you can be a journalist and you don't vet these stories. You just parade women out, and you parade them out to say this happened or that happened, but no one vets them to say, when did it happen?
Right.
Okay, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you report it to someone?
Exactly.
And Gayle just held the phone, and she said, I tell you what, I'm going to take the time and try to read all of this stuff. Never heard back from Gayle until I visited with her at CBS, like I did so many other networks. But, you know, it's important for people to understand the world that we live in as we look at these entertainers today. We have to understand that of all of these Black entertainers today, still have to succumb to the oppressor.
Absolutely.
They don't have the things that they claim to have that you see on social media. The new branding on social media now amongst Black celebrities to say I'm a billionaire. I'm a billionaire. But when trouble comes their way, you get to see that they don't have $1 billion of liquid that they can touch.
Exactly.
They have maybe $1 billion as it relates to their assets, but they don't have true liquid.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I said about Diddy.
Well, Diddy, when you look at the overall Diddy situation, it wasn't Diddy settling. What people have to understand is that you right now, Queen Ahmadiyyah, you could go to your insurance carrier, your homeowner's insurance carrier, and say, look, I want to get a defamation policy. And not a defamation policy, a liability policy. And that covers you for defamation and all kinds of things. And in that policy, if someone ever sues you for, God forbid it, for anything, and said that you defamed them, you call your carrier and say, hey, look, I need representation. They will pay your legal bills. They will hire your attorney. They will defend you through that. Well, Diddy's insurance carrier said, look, we are going to settle this claim with Cassie.
Right.
Like it or not, we're settling. And if you don't step down from all your companies, we're not going to insure your employees at Revolt. You're going to be insured. So that's why Diddy is in this situation. That's why so many of these women, I think they have over 2,000 civil suits were filed on Thanksgiving Day.
Like 2,500. Like 2,500.
Yeah,
yes.
2,500 because of the look back window. And so what we have to understand is that it's bigger than Bill Cosby. Whether I'm with Mr. Cosby tomorrow or I'm no longer representing him, I'm going to always be fighting this because it's bigger than Bill Cosby. It's bigger than Diddy. It's about our young Black boys and girls out here who will one day become successful, and how they're going to use our young Black girls to destroy our young Black boys when they become men and they become successful entertainers, to successful scholars, athletes. When they gain what I call not the American dream, but God's dream of prosperity, that's when these look back windows are going to come back and be very dangerous.
Absolutely. Because people will look at it as an easy money grab, and you don't really even have to have proof and evidence. Where's the DNA? Where's the rape kits? There's none of these things. It's just she said, he said. And
as America has said, is that women don't lie, and we know that's a lie.
That's
everybody lies, and
exactly.
And to say that believe the women, okay, believe the women. I'm not saying bad things don't happen to women, but bad things have been happening to our Black women from the beginning of time. Our grandmothers and great grandmothers and ancestors have been raped by white men since the beginning of time. If you truly believe in Me Too and believe the women, then you will go in through history and say all of the people who have developed any form of wealth from slaves and raping Black women, we're going to destroy your character and your legacy.
And you need to pay the descendants of those people, but they're not going to do that.
No, they're not going to do that. Reparations will never happen.
Never.
Our form of reparations that they tested the water was with us and became the litmus test with those stimulus checks during the pandemic. And when they saw how Black got that money, and they thought that they had the same status as celebrities, and they were able to shop in these stores alongside their biggest names because they said we're on an even playing field. They said, look, see what they're going to do with the money. Yeah. So reparations is something I believe in, but will it happen? I don't know.
I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. Now I want to show this this news report on Joan Tashis. Is that her name?
Joan Tarsha.
Tarsha. Okay. Yes, because this woman came after 50 years. Accused of Mr. Cosby.
She was a publicist back in the day. And Joan Tarsha, when she first came out,
2014.
2014. She was one of the group that CNN paraded out. So Don Lemon calls me up, and Don, he said, I'm going to have Joan Tarsha on live. I said, okay. Why don't you have me on too? He said, well, no, I can't. My president is not going to allow that to happen. I said, well, you guys do it with other people. You have Gloria Allred on when someone comes on the air to defend Mr. Cosby. Why can't you have me on? He said, I can't do it. He said, but what's your comment about this? I said, well, okay, Don, she's claiming that Mr. Cosby forced his penis in her mouth. I said, she has teeth. Why did she try to bite or do something with her mouth? I said, if you bite a man's penis, I'm pretty sure they're gonna stop doing whatever they're gonna be doing, trying to do to you. And Don said, that's a great point. He goes on the air and asks her that live. He was berated by the viewers and the Me Too people and alleged victims and Gloria Allred. And he sent me a message on my phone saying, you know what? I hate you because you put that in my head. I said, Don, I didn't make you ask the question. Right. I was just trying to give real life scenarios out here. But those are the things, Queen, that they don't want you to ask. No one is supposed to, because they call it re-victimizing a victim. Yeah, that's re-traumatizing a victim. And they're saying, well, victim shaming, but if someone is claiming that you and I did something to them, you mean to tell me I cannot question them about what happened and why didn't you tell anyone? I never forget Judge O'Neill in both of the trials in Montgomery County. Every time our attorneys would try to cross-examine any alleged victim, Tom Mesereau, man, this guy, Tom, every question he would try to ask the judge said, no, you're not going to ask that question. I'm limiting you to 3 questions or 4 questions.
What? That is absolutely unheard of.
It's unheard of, but when they had this, what you're seeing against Mr. Cosby didn't happen in 2014. This happened in 1960 when he was on Nixon's enemies list and as a communist because he refused to perform at the White House for Nixon, and his shows were canceled. Wow. Now, this man, the FBI had him under surveillance, his family under surveillance. There's a dossier about his movements and his whereabouts and what he was doing. Well, how can this black man, Bill Cosby, who is a renowned figure, in the spotlight at his prime of I Spy, and he's under the watchful eye of the FBI, and you got J. Edgar Hoover, who's the head of the FBI, and you mean to tell Bill Cosby could go around drugging and raping white women
and just getting away with it when the FBI is watching? Yeah, that's impossible. Not making any sense. That's not making any sense.
Number, if you Google it, he's number like 128 or 129 on Nixon's enemies list, along with Dick Gregory and so many others were on that list. A lot of renowned white names and black names were on that list. It's communist. So what I'm saying is that whether it's Bill Cosby or anybody, we have to stop depending on social media, because the internet is something that we live on because we want something to believe in. We want to be able to say we have the facts of anything. Well, the only way you're going to get the real facts of anything in life, you have to sit down and do the research and read trial transcripts. You have to read depositions. All of that stuff is publicly out here for Mr. Cosby. And as I said to some people recently, and people called me about Diddy and various people, I said, look, we have the formula. You know, the formula of doing this and fighting this is about putting the facts out. Now, the media, unfortunately, they waited until Mr. Cosby got in his old age and Mrs. Cosby. And it's hard to fight when you're in your 80s, at that level when you never owned a computer, you never owned a cell phone or a computer, you never had the internet, you don't have an email address, so you're not techno savvy to be in this world fighting what you see on social media. We just seen how Cat Williams have put out a lot of things that's stoking the fire on social media. Well, the people who he's putting information out against, they're young, they're able to fight it, they're able to go on these sites and go on these shows and give their side and their version. Bill Cosby has never been able to give his version because when he did not say nothing, he was sued for defaming the women. And he said nothing. His attorney just spoke on his behalf. And he said,
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of someone suing a person's attorney for defamation when the person didn't say it out of their own mouths.
Marty Singer, who represents the Kardashian, who represented Mr. Cosby for over 10, 12 years. Marty represents some of the most renowned names in entertainment. He's a phenomenal entertainment attorney. Marty Singer said these are fantastical stories. That's what he called them. They sued Marty for defamation and sued Mr. Cosby because they said his attorney spoke on his behalf and defamed the women. So you mean to tell me my legal representation can't be my mouthpiece?
Yeah, that's
so people ask the question, why haven't you heard from Bill Cosby? Well, you can't hear from Mr. Cosby, especially now. But my disappointment in it, and I had these conversations with Mr. and Mrs. Cosby, is that I felt it doesn't matter if you say something or you don't say anything. Right. It's still going to sue you.
Yeah.
So tell your side of the story. Speak up and talk about what's going on and put it out there. Because what I don't want to see happen, whether I'm with Mr. Cosby or not, I don't want to see his legacy just go away in that manner. Right. Where nothing's told. Yes, I'm writing a book that Mr. Cosby had been helping me with. And we finally got the treatment done to talk about a lot of things. But, I sat on the floor. I grew up in Bessemer, Alabama. And I sat on the floor of the projects watching Bill Cosby teach me my ABCs on electric company. At 50 years now, I would have never thought, who would have ever thought I would have been representing Bill Cosby and his wife, Mrs. Cosby. But, to be in that position, I tell people, say, why did you do it? I was like, it wasn't for fame or fortune. It was because I believed in justice for Black America. I believed in equality for us. We never get a fair shot on anything. And I wanted to show the world what loyalty looked like and standing by someone that you believe in, standing on the foundation of truth. And I remember asking Mr. Cosby, so look, I have a daughter, I have a mother, I have aunts, aunties and female friends. Did you do these things? Because Jill Scott had called me up and she said, I don't know what to believe. And I said, Jill, this is what he told me. He said, Andrew, I would not take you through the valley of shame. I said, so Jill, I'm in it. I'm in it until they tell me we don't want to have anything else to do with you, but I'm in the fight. And I will continue to fight because it's bigger than him. It's about my grandsons now. My 3-year-old grandson and my 7-month-old grandson, who I want them to know that the rules have changed. And here are the new rules. But you have to be careful now who you engage with. You got to be careful now who you date. Dating has changed now. I remember Mrs. Cosby warning me, don't pick a female up to take her out on a date anymore, Mr. Wyatt. Meet her somewhere and make her Uber to you. Get her an Uber to go home. Don't you take her home if she had anything to drink. But that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's the world that we live in today.
That is the world that we live in. And you also have to be careful on the jobs, just being too friendly or even casually speaking to someone. You
can't tell someone your hair look nice. I can't say to you on the job, Queen Ahmadiyyah, man, what a beautiful dress. because you could say, "Oh, that triggered me."
Exactly.
You know, and it's unfortunate, but people have to realize that the rules have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And you have. I know nobody likes change, but we have to change with the rules now.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We have to adapt to our situations.
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna play this video so everyone can understand pretty much what Joan Tarshia said. And I also want them to see who she is.
News out of California, actor and comedian Bill Cosby is facing a new sexual assault lawsuit. It was filed by former Playboy model Victoria Valentino. She's one of several Cosby accusers expected to file civil suits in the coming days. Our very own Kate Snow has done extensive reporting on Cosby over the years. So, Kate, of course, we all know those criminal charges back in Pennsylvania. And then that conviction, though, was overturned. So what does this all mean in the civil?
Yeah, so what's happening here now is Cosby accusers are sort of finding a new way to seek justice. Victoria Valentino filed suit in Los Angeles under a new California statute that temporarily allows older cases to be filed. She's someone that I've known since 2015 when I interviewed 27 women who accused Bill Cosby of various crimes from harassment to rape. Valentino says that she met Cosby more than 50 years ago. He took her to a restaurant with a friend, offered her pills. She says she took one and immediately felt dizzy and nauseous. She says Bill Cosby raped her. Today, after filing suit, she told me she was in tears, that she never thought she would see this day. Here's a statement that she wrote to me on a text to me. Bill Cosby exploited me when I was at my lowest point and was consumed by grief. That's because she had lost her son. I hope this serves as my legacy to my family and shows those survivors who have yet to find their voices that hope and healing are possible.
Wow, really powerful words from her, Victoria Valentino. And I know she's based in California, though Nevada has separate laws when it comes to statutes on sexual assault.
Right. And so what's interesting is they're just about to change their law in Nevada. And some of the women who've accused Cosby were involved in getting this new law passed in Nevada. Tomorrow, the governor there will sign the law that allows anyone with a claim of sexual assault, no matter how old it is, to file lawsuits in a civil claim. I've spoken with 3 other Cosby accusers today who intend to file suit as soon as they possibly can in Nevada. So that would be 4 different women, 2 different suits, pursuing this civil litigation. As we said, the criminal avenue is no longer open, so they're going with this civil avenue.
I mean, but could have far-reaching implications.
It could.
And of course, Bill Cosby remains a household name. What is he saying? What's his team saying?
Yeah, and to be clear, he is no longer in prison. He is at home. And a spokesperson for Bill Cosby did release this statement saying about Victoria Valentino that Ms. Valentino has skirted from town to town, promoting her alleged allegations. I think we have a full screen we can put up. Promoting her allegations against Mr. Cosby to anyone that would give her a platform without any proof or facts. America is continuing to see that this is a formula to make sure that no more black men in America accumulate the American dream that was secured by Mr. Cosby. That is a point that he and his attorneys have made again and again in the years that I have covered him.
I was going to say, this is an important development, but you have been covering this for years and have spoken to so many of these survivors.
7 years now since we first sat down with, as I said, 26, I think, women in one place who all had made various accusations. And at the time, Bill Cosby said he denied all of their allegations.
Well, this is definitely one to continue following. Kate Snow, thank you so much for your reporting.
Okay, that was the one with Victoria. My mistake. Now, Joan.
Now, Victoria Valentino, her story has changed over 10 times. First, she claimed that her son. Everybody knows the story about her son drowning. She was drinking in the house and left her son unsupervised at a Hollywood party, and he drowned in the pool. A biracial son she had. But her first allegation, she claimed that Bill Cosby took her to a bungalow, and her and her girlfriend, they were at this restaurant. He picked them up, took them to the bungalow, and he gave them something, and she was woozy, and she threw a pillow at him and said, "Come and get me, don't do her." And he raped her, forced himself, inserted her and raped her while the friend was unconscious. And then she passed out. Then she has changed her story to say that Bill Cosby met her somewhere and took her, wanted her to audition for I Spy, and then invited her out and then raped her somewhere else. Her story has changed over 10 times. And all of these women's stories continue to change. Right now, Janice Dickinson is going on a radio tour. to find ways to supplement her income and make more money, because you mentioned Bill Cosby in the news, and it's a hot topic, and people want to talk about it and make money off of it. So that's Victoria Valentino's story, and Joan Tarsha, and all of the stories keep changing. Every time they tell it, it's never the same.
And that's very interesting. And then the thing is also they don't have any proof about any of these things.
And Kate Snow was so sad about Kate. Kate and I, we had lunch a number of times and we sat down. I always say NBC stands for No Bill Cosby, after he saved the network from bankruptcy 7 times. But Kate, I confronted Kate at the courthouse and I said, Kate, this is not journalism. NBC hired handlers for each of the accusers, the alleged accusers. They had their own handlers. They had their own car service. NBC paid for their hotels. They gave them per diem money every day. And NBC producers, executive producers, along with Kate Snow, sat with the women in both trials holding their hands. Now, are you a journalist or are you a supporter of the alleged accusers?
Right.
You can't play both roles.
Because it's, first of all, a conflict of interest.
Well, it's journalistic malpractice.
That's right.
How could you say I can come and tell a story and be unbiased when you are biased, sitting in the courtroom holding hands with these alleged accusers? And I'm talking about these women were walking around like celebrities. Every time I would do an interview, I would have hundreds of cameras around me. They will break their way in to try and create chaos to get their attention back on themselves. Real victims of sexual assault or victims of any crime, they don't behave in that manner.
Right.
They just don't.
That's right. And I noticed how they were acting outside of the courthouse and all of that. It was just like a circus at the end of the day.
It was like a pack of wolves.
Yeah.
Just looking for media attention, screaming, Andrew, we hate you. Look, Lisa Lott Loveland's husband has followed me various places. One of the accusers out of Nevada to try and fight me. He showed up in Philly and tried to. Gloria Allred provoked him to come over to my table. I'm sitting at the table with one of the talent from ABC News and CNN, and he comes over and confronts me and calls me out my name and wants to fight me, challenge me to a Mortal Kombat fight. For Cosby's civil trial in LA, I was there for 4 months. In 2023, and he showed up. They drove from Vegas to fight me, and showed up and stayed at the courtroom trying to instigate things to provoke
you because they want to make you look crazy, like the angry black man. Yeah,
and Mrs. Cosby would call me every day and said, "Mr. Wyatt, don't let them win. Don't turn your back on them." I was off the train in New York 6 months ago. I took the train from Philly to New York. Some guy approached me. He was one of the accuser's brothers, and approached me to fight me. So because I know who my enemies are. Who's related, but everybody knows my face. But these people are thugs. They're not the true thugs.
That's right.
And that's the message that, shows like yours, Queen Ahmadiyyah, we need shows like yours because we need the truth being put out here. These women would never come on your show. Gloria Allred would never come on your show. You know why? Because you're going to ask them the questions that mainstream media would never ask.
That's right. I absolutely would. Absolutely.
Right.
And the lies would come undone.
Right.
Now, so for the 9 women that accused Mr. Cosby in Nevada, I have here Janice Dickerson, Lisa Lott Lublin, Janice Baker Kinney, Lily Bernard, Heidi Thomas, Linda Kirkpatrick, Rebecca Cooper, Pam Joy Abeta, and
Yeah.
Angela Leslie. So they did this as soon as that law was passed, I would imagine.
Right. And to go through those women now, Lily Bernard, she played the pregnant woman on the Cosby Show. She's not only suing him in New Jersey, but her case got thrown out when the district attorney came to us in 2015 and said they met with her and Gloria Allred in Atlantic City for over 8 hours. And the district attorney reached out and said, we're not pressing charges because they found that her claims were not to be true. But because of this look back window, she has filed, Lily Bernard has filed a civil suit against Mr. Cosby in New Jersey. She's a part of the look back window suit in New York, and she's now part of Nevada. See, they're recycling these women in every city. Janice Baker King sat on the witness stand at the 2018 trial and testified under oath. Pull the court documents, their public knowledge, and pull her testimony. She said, my girlfriend and I always look for the big black man to sleep with. She said, I did every drug known to man. I can't tell you if Bill Cosby raped or drugged me, but after talking to my husband, he said it happened.
What? This is
on the witness stand. Now, her and her girlfriend, specifically, she said, we looked for the big black man to sleep with. We wanted the big black monster to sleep with. Now, and she talked about she did LSD. She works for a TV station somewhere in Northern California. All of these women, if you vet their stories, they're just recycled women. Janice Dickinson. Now, all of a sudden, you're saying, okay, she was on a shoot in Bali. Mr. Cosby flies her from Bali to Lake Tahoe. Okay, he brought her to Lake Tahoe because she claimed she wanted to be a singer. So Mr. Cosby had there his at the time his Stu Gardner. Stu Gardner was one of his musicians who helped create the music for the Cosby Show. A black guy who lives out of Virginia. Okay. And he had a prominent singer there. And he had this prominent singer, Phyllis Hyman, in Lake Tahoe, because they were going to audition Janice Dickinson because she said she could sing and she wanted to get into have a singing career. After Stu Gardner and Phyllis Hyman hears Janice Dickinson, they all shook their head and said, is this a joke or what? so they thought Mr. Cosby was playing a joke on them. And so
oh my goodness. Now that is hilarious.
Right. They thought it was a joke. And so Janice Dickinson writes in her memoirs that she goes to Bill Cosby's door, knock on his door to have sex with him. He blows her off and slams the door in her face. She goes in her room, pop 2 Quaaludes, and go to sleep. They ask her on the witness stand, did you write this in your book? She said, yes, it's called poetic licensing.
Yeah, she said she lied about it.
To get a paycheck.
Yes, so I remember that.
I'm just saying, but now this is a woman who's saying I lied under oath.
To get a paycheck.
To get a paycheck. Now, how can you believe her when she's telling you I would do anything to get a paycheck? But
crazy.
But that's the climate that we live in when it comes to Bill Cosby's name. They want him so bad, the powers that be, that they're going to try and strip him of everything he owns. Yes. They're going to make sure he has nothing. They stopped all of Mrs. Cosby's projects. They stopped the grandchildren projects. Nobody can say, the grandchildren can't say that Bill Cosby is my grandfather.
What?
In the public. No, because they will be ridiculed. They can't, and when you have to denounce your father or your grandfather in order to survive. I remember Mr. Cosby saying to me, saying, Andrew, I had some opportunities. I lost a total of 15 clients by representing Bill Cosby. Wow. HBCUs walked away from me, who I had represented. A number of people walked away. And Mr. Cosby said to me, he said, Andrew, he apologized. And he said, as long as you're tied to me, you know, you're tied to me for the rest of your life. He said, we have an anniversary that we will share together. June 30th of every year is our anniversary. That's the day I walked him out of prison. He said, that will be our anniversary every year. He said, but you might not be public enemy number one, but you're in the top 10, top 15. He said, because Bill Cosby, they're not going to stop because they started with me. So they will never stop with him. They want to take his homes away. They want to take everything that he's accumulated in over 50 plus years, and they want to strip it away from him.
And this is often they want to destroy his legacy. Now, the question is, why do you think they're so dead set on ending or, destroying Mr. Cosby's legacy? Because this seems to be never ending. This has been going on for what, almost 10 years now?
Yeah, longer. Yeah, a little bit over 10 years.
Yeah, this is crazy.
This started when Mr. Cosby settled. If you remember, his son, Ennis Cosby, was murdered in '99.
Yes.
And then after that, a young lady by the name of Autumn Jackson tried to extort him for $40 million, saying he was her father. And if he didn't give her the $40 million, she was going to go public. Well, Mr. Cosby went and had a DNA test done.
I remember that. His
blood is still in Delaware County, in Delaware, the state of Delaware, where he had the blood test. And she never showed up. Mr. Cosby reached out to her mother, Shawn Jackson, who he admitted to having an affair with. Shawn, she's now one of the women claiming that Cosby raped and drugged her. And he called Shawn up and asked Shawn to stop her daughter. He didn't want to see her daughter get in trouble. He tried to put the daughter through college, not even knowing that was his child. He said, look, I know this is not my child, but she won't even go take the blood test to see if I'm her father.
You're right.
So his attorney at the time, Jack Schmidt, wore a wire for the FBI. And Autumn Jackson was arrested on the spot and did time in jail for that, did time in prison. For trying to extort him. Then after that, 2005 comes around, and Andrea Constand claims Bill Cosby, raped and drugged her. Now, he never raped her. He digitally penetrated her, meaning he fingered her. That's all he did. But, Mr. Cosby said that his family had been through so much. He just wanted to get back to work and put this behind him. So he settled. He settled everything. He just settled out for $3.8 million with Constand. And then, in his mind, everything went away. Unfortunately, his attorneys at the time never got anything in writing. A press release was just sent out by then the district attorney, Bruce Castor, and Bruce Castor became even more famous because he represented Trump in his impeachment. But Castor was the district attorney. He wrote a press release that all charges was dropped against Bill Cosby. Well, Mr. Cosby did have a deal. Well, at that time, Obama runs for president of the United States. Michelle Obama was calling the house every day trying to get Mr. Cosby to publicly support President Obama. He was like, no, I just settled with this woman, and I feel like it would ruin you. As Mr. Cosby stated to me, Obama kept telling him, we have a machine. We have a machine, and we can protect you. Well, when you really look at the big picture, Mr. Cosby walks away. That passes. Obama wins the presidency. They blame the Cosby Show for helping Obama to win the presidency, because they said all the people who grew up watching the Cosby Show and ended up going to HBCUs and became educated because of a different world, that was the group of people that led the surge, along with the millennials, to get Obama elected.
Wow.
So when that came out, at the time, Bill Cosby, now, things are moving on in life. He has a new TV show. He's still touring, coming out. His new TV show is coming out in February 2015. Well, Bill Cosby walks away from William Morris. He had been with William Morris for over almost 50 years. He goes to CAA, Creative Artists Agency. They start repping him with a new TV show coming out. Well, who becomes the head of William Morris? R.E. Emanuel. And Mr. Cosby, and we discussed it at length, he always felt that because he didn't support Obama, that the machine went against him. And as I said to him, and we talked about, he said, Andrew, this machine has been coming after me since the 60s, when Mrs. Cosby and I took our monies, our own monies, and we got people educated and trained to become hairstylists in Hollywood. We got them in the union, so they could be in the union, so we could have black hairstylists. We could have wardrobe artists who were black in the union in Hollywood. He said, that's when my troubles started coming. Nixon's enemies list. He said, they've been after me, Andrew, for almost 50 years.
Wow.
And now they finally got me. And he always go back to when he tried to purchase NBC, and he tried to purchase the Cleveland Browns in the same year. And he was like, our very own, the Diddy and Magic Johnson said, no, he doesn't need to own, this black guy doesn't need to own NBC. Why don't you just give us a channel? He said, so when they were able to turn my own against me from supporting me to own this network, because I was going to change the way news was delivered. I was going to go back to when journalists were journalists. I was going to change the way what shows was put on television. I was going to change how we weren't going to have all these reality shows on TV. We were going to give people shows that made them feel good about themselves. So he said, Andrew, they will never stop. So what I did for Mr. Cosby, after he told me that story, and we revisited that story sitting in prison in a room with him, and he said to me, and he looked me in my eyes, and he's blind, and he said, you can't let my legacy die. So I never forget Mrs. Cosby called. We would stay on the phone for 3-4 hours up into the wee hours of the morning. And she was watching Turner Classic Movies, and she saw a documentary on Floyd Norman, black cartoonist for Disney. And she said, one day I would love for him to work with my husband. So I heard her. She didn't ask me to make a call or anything. I heard what she said. And I kept hearing and having dreams about Mr. Cosby saying to me, I don't want my legacy to die in here. And I want to change the image of who we are. So I found a number for Floyd Norman, and a guy by the name of Leo Sullivan, who did Scooby-Doo. Floyd Norman, he created Uncle Remus books. He did Mickey Mouse. He still does cartoons for Disney. They're all in the 80s. Mr. Sullivan passed away last year. And while Mr. Cosby was in prison, he was helping develop a new TV show for Fat Albert. They got a few episodes done, but then Mr. Sullivan passed away, and the project kind of went by the wayside because all these civil suits started coming back out. And what he said to me, he said, Andrew, they're never going to let me work again. They're never going to let my family work again. He said, so, it's all we can do at this point and this present time. He said, Andrew, it's your turn to be out here. It's your turn to show the world what the truth looks like, and to make sure this doesn't happen to another black man. It's your turn. And so that's why I get out here and do these interviews, because we're just trying to make sure, even in the midst of his troubles, he's still trying to protect his own people.
Wow. And some of his own people didn't even stand with him. They turned against him.
They turned against him. Majority of all of them turned against him.
Yeah.
The majority of all. And, Faison Love stood in the trenches with us. Yes. Joe Torre showed up, and other comedians showed up to the trials, and Keisha Knight Pulliam showed up. She was the only member from the Cosby Show, the cast of the Cosby Show, that showed up to one of the trials in 2017. But other than that, we were out there on our All of the Black college presidents, none of them showed up to the trials to support us. Black media wasn't present, but Black Press USA with Stacey Brown and Dr. Benjamin Chavis, they stood by my side. I took Dr. Chavis and along with some documentarians who I was working on a documentary with Mr. Cosby about his legacy. I took them to visit him in prison. But I would like to say that prison did save his life, because it saved his life because he was able to save so many other people's lives on the inside.
Right.
And it also saved his life because I was visiting with him and his clarity wasn't all there. And his eyes looked like crayon. I said, Mr. Cosby, what's wrong? He said, what are you talking about? I said, your eyes they look like crayons, man. They're red. And he said, I don't know. And I called Mrs. Cosby up, and I got on the phone with Gina Orlando, who's a publicist for the prison, and the warden. And I said, if you don't get him to the hospital ASAP, I will have a press conference outside of this prison. And it will be an uproar in the prison. And you will have a riot in the prison if something happens to Bill Cosby. And I had met with Minister Farrakhan before he was taken into custody. And Mr. Farrakhan at his home in Chicago gave his support, love, and has supported from day one. And I will always stand with Minister Farrakhan and with the Nation of Islam. The brothers out of New York City, Shema Israel, Nahasi, and Prince Nat, that group of brothers stood by Mr. Cosby. No, they did not have the platform of the Nation of Islam, but every Shabbat they would get on their airways, on their YouTube live, and they would say, pray for Bill Cosby. So all of the churches that he helped, all of the preachers and those in the spiritual world that he gave millions of dollars to who were afraid to stand up, these people stood by him. And like I said, Minister Farrakhan always checked in. If he didn't check in, the brothers from the nation would check in. Brother Muhammad, Don Muhammad, all of those brothers would check in and say, we just checking on Brother Bill. And it makes you feel good because you know you're not alone.
That's right.
So, Mr. Cosby had 2 emergency surgeries. He had 90% blockage on his left and right side, his carotid arteries. They got that cleaned out. And then a year later, I got him out of prison. And I got the call from somebody called Nick the Hat, good friend of mine out of Philly. He said, you need to get to Philadelphia. And I got to Philly. And I didn't want to go, but I got there. And while I was there, Nick informed me that the district attorney had placed a fine on Mr. and Mrs. Cosby because they didn't cut their grass on time. And he fined them each $1,500. So I went to my bank and I withdrew a cashier's check for $3,000 to pay the fine. And I'm in an Uber to pay the fine. And Nick called me and said, hey, he's getting out and get to the prison. But I didn't tell Mrs. Cosby what I knew, or Mr. Cosby, or the attorneys, because at that point in time, you don't know who you can trust.
That's right.
You don't know who you can trust. You don't know. Not saying I didn't trust Mrs. Cosby, but the phones, you don't trust the phone line.
That's right.
And you don't know who could be listening and say, before he walks out of here, let's assassinate him. And so I made it a point to be the one to pick him up and drive him home to freedom. So it was that Harriet Tubman moment that I had without having to be there during those times of the underground tunnel. It was like taking Mr. Cosby on the underground tunnel in just a different era, a different century. And it feels good every day. And sometimes I take a time on our anniversary. I go look at those videos of how I brought him home to freedom.
Absolutely. I love it. And, I have to commend you, Andrew, for all of your, your work that you've done and for standing by him. And if it had not been for you noticing the problem with his eyes, he may have had a stroke because blockage in the carotid artery. That's what they told him. He would have stroked out. He would have stroked out sometime. Absolutely. And they said it would have been within a week. Wow.
And like I say, God is amazing. The Most High is amazing because, you would say to yourself, okay, this guy's in his 80s, they're in those golden years. You should be enjoying life and enjoying your family, your grandchildren.
That's right.
But you're stripped of all this. And then not only are you stripped of everything, but they put you in prison.
Yeah.
But Mr. Cosby channeled Martin Luther King Jr. He channeled Nelson Mandela. He channeled Malcolm X, and he would just talk about all of these iconic, political prisoners.
Mhm.
And he would channel Mandela on how Mandela ate his food in cell when he was in prison. And Mr. Cosby would wash his eggs off every day under the sink in his cell just to try to get some of the salt off of the food so he could eat it. But it's that way of survival. And what it tells us, no matter what your circumstance and no matter if a person tries to take your freedom away, one thing they can't take away from you is your intelligence.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Now let's talk about how this Adult Survivors Act, this to me was all geared to try to bring down Mr. Cosby, as we know. But let's talk about how it has impacted other people as well, because they have all these lawsuits. Jamie Foxx got hit with one. We already know about Diddy. And then they had, what's the guy's name? Jimmy Iovine, isn't that his name?
Yeah. Jimmy Iovine. They had Axl Rose, Steven Tyler.
Right.
They got Eric Adams out of New York.
L.A. Reid.
L.A. Reid. The list goes on and on and on. And like I said, I talked about this on the courthouse steps in 2016, 2017, 2018. And I specifically said in my interviews, I said in my press conferences, I said, LeBron James, President Obama, Will Smith, Kevin Hart, all of you guys, if you sit on the sidelines because things are good for you right now, you're going to be truly sitting on the sidelines, because when Hollywood gets tired of you, or you wake up from this dream that you're having, because everything looks beautiful and lovely in your dream. But when you come out of the dream and you decide that I don't want to do this no more, I want to own me, then your day will come. If you think they're not going to, if they wouldn't let Bill Cosby leave here as America's dad, do you think they're going to let a black man leave this planet as King James?
That's right. I mean, look what they did to Michael Jackson, the king of pop.
But look what they're still doing to Michael.
Right.
Still doing to Michael
in death. That's
in
right.
Death. So if what they're,
they just, not to cut you off, but they just said that his name was on Jeffrey Epstein's list. First of all, that wasn't a list; it was documents. But they conveniently said Michael's name was on there.
It's all about the wording. It's all about the wording, and to say a list in your mind and in the public mind, when you say a list, oh my God, Michael, it was true. He was a part of this, but look at all the other white celebrities that they didn't focus on.
Exactly.
That was on that so-called list.
Right.
So they didn't really focus. They just went straight to Michael.
Right. Because that was for publication purposes, because that's a headliner. That's going to draw people in. And then also with the history of what they did to Michael previously with those allegations that he was acquitted of, by the way, that makes it all look more plausible to people who don't bother to do the research. But at the end of the day, it was the fact that basically I was told that Michael Jackson met with him briefly because they were trying to get some financial things going or whatever, and that didn't pan out. So that was the end of that.
Well, the meeting happened from the source. Tom Mesereau, who I brought in for the 2018 trial for Mr. Cosby. Tom Mesereau is the one that won that trial for Michael Jackson.
I met him. I was on a panel with him on Gavin Richard's show.
Good. Yes. Mesereau is a brilliant guy. Mesereau is like a brother to me, and we talk at least twice a week. Mesereau he had been coming to Alabama for the past 25 years doing pro bono cases for black men who couldn't afford permanent attorneys. He had been doing it. He only lost one in the 25 years he's been coming to Birmingham, Alabama, trying cases for free. But Mesereau, he went to Michael at the time. Michael had lost a lot of money, and Michael was pretty much broke. Michael had showed up at Rainbow Push Coalition office to Reverend Jackson because he could not pay his hotel bill in Chicago. Wow. And Reverend Jackson had to use his credit card to pay Michael stay at the hotel off in Chicago. When Michael won that trial, when Mesereau won that trial, he went to Michael and said to Michael, "You need to leave America." You need to forget about Neverland. And so Michael moved to Bahrain.
Mhm.
He owed at the time, I think he owed millions to Mesereau and Mesereau's partner. Mesereau thought they'll never get paid because most celebrities say to themselves, well, you got all the attention from it. Why should I pay you?
Mhm.
And Michael went to the Prince of Bahrain and borrowed the money to pay Tom Mesereau. Then
Wow.
Michael moved to London and the Prince of Bahrain sued him because he moved to London. Michael left here with, Michael had no money. So Michael was meeting with Epstein. It was just merely about, how to get financing.
Right. I know.
And it had nothing to do with Michael saying, hey, funnel in this to me, a funnel.
Right.
Who knows the real truth behind all of that?
Mhm.
Because there are so many layers and so many different players
Right.
in that whole saga. But, it's having Tom Mesereau, and I could tell you we had these conversations because Mesereau went to the Michael Jackson estate and went to them to hire me to represent the estate. And the only problem was that I didn't want to move back. I didn't want to move to LA. I didn't want to, and that was one of the requirements. You had to move to LA.
Mhm.
And but that's how close Tom and I are. We have spoken extensively about Michael. A
Mhm.
lot of the hidden stories about Michael and how Michael was just so devastated that Oprah and all these other people wanted to destroy him.
Yes.
And where they only wanted to be, and Michael would say things just like Mr. Cosby would say, they don't want to have multiple Black families out here to
Mhm.
say, I got multiple Black kings and multiple Black queens.
That's
They,
right.
they have said in American history, you can only have one. We could have the multiples, but you can only have one.
That's right. That's how that goes.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So when you look at these look back windows, Diddy, they all ignored it because Bill Cosby was the litmus test for all of this. Tried to
Right.
resist it. The same way they paraded Diddy out there, and I'm going to give you the step-by-step play
Okay.
and compare the both.
Mhm.
Okay, so Mr. Cosby, he's touring. Shows are being sold out all over the country. I'm on the phone with him at Sony. Sony Pictures is helping to produce a new Cosby show that's coming out in February 2015. I'm on the phone with the producers, telling them stories of how Mr. Cosby and I met this young lady, this young girl who's now in the military. She was playing on a basketball team and she shot the ball in the wrong hoop. That was going to be an episode. And she helped the other team score, not knowing she helped the other team score.
Okay.
So, Mr. Cosby gets the Johnny Carson Award. All of these things and the new show is coming out. Okay, fast forward. Now we come to Diddy. Diddy has a new album come out. He's all on social media. He's touting the fact that he's a billionaire. He gets the Video Music Award of the Year. Everything is going well for Diddy. So they say, okay, well, just like Cosby, we got him out here feeling good. He's not paying attention to anything around him. Well, Diddy forgets that. What have you done? You're suing Ciroc. Okay, you've been with Ciroc for over a decade alone. Okay, Ciroc has been supplying all the liquor and all of the people, females, hostesses to work your parties, Ciroc girls. So we got dirt on you now, Diddy. So they give Diddy all the glam and all the glory. And then once they get him feeling good about himself, boom, we're going to bring a woman out against you. It hits so hard because they did it the same way they did Mr. Cosby. It was the same formula. Diddy said it could never happen to him, but it was the same formula. We would give you all of the glitz, the glamour, all of the awards, but as soon as we get done with that, we will wait till the holidays. Same thing they did with Mr. Cosby. They waited until when those allegations came out against Mr. Cosby around the holidays.
Wow.
October, November 2014. When did those allegations hit around Diddy? Close to the holidays. Why? Because that's when we have more Black people tuned in
Mm-hmm.
to television, radio, and their social media. We got
That's
the
right.
world's attention. We have the formula now why we have the world's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And they pull the carpet from under Diddy. Diddy became so arrogant in Diddy that he lost track of the people around you. I told Mr. Cosby, when somebody sets you up, it's not somebody far away in Russia or Ukraine.
That's right.
It's in your backyard. It's within
Mm-hmm.
your team. It's somebody who you pissed off, who you didn't pay, who has more information on you because you let them into the circle and you betrayed them in some manner, some form.
That's right.
So the
That's
setup is never, and when Mr. Cosby had the opportunity and Mrs. Cosby to really pay attention, they saw it was right in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
It was the very people that they trusted that had been with them for 40 plus years.
People that they've helped.
I'm talking about more than help. People that they bought houses for.
Mm-hmm.
They paid off their debts.
This is all crazy.
And so when you look at Diddy, when you look at Jamie Foxx,
mm-hmm.
you know, what did they do? They waited until Jamie what? He's sick. He's not himself.
That's right.
He doesn't have the strength to fight back. And at the end of the day, it's when you bulk the system. When you start getting out here talking about, I'm a billionaire. Let me show y'all what my money could do for me. Look at Jay-Z. They don't draped a library in Brooklyn after Jay-Z.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're doing all these stories. Jay-Z will stay whole because of Beyonce.
Mm-hmm.
But don't think that they're not looking at Jay-Z and trying to figure out, how did we let this guy slip through the cracks?
Oh, yes. I absolutely said Jay-Z is probably going to be next.
Yeah. And if they were smart, I wish if everybody was just smart and they come together, the Jay-Z, the Diddy's of the world, the Bill Cosby of the world, and imagine if all of them stood at a microphone like they did We Are the World, with Michael Jackson and all of them put their We Are the World album together. If they put We Are Our History, imagine if they did a We Are Our History press conference. It would speak volumes to the world that we're standing together and we're going to help each other out. We're going to band our resources and our wealth together. And you know what? You can sue us, but you know what? Like you're tainting the jury pool, we're going to taint the jury pool. We're going to taint the jury pool by putting our own information out here. We're going to start our own network, our own podcasts.
But you know what the sad thing is? Just like when you spoke in 2016 on the courthouse steps and you talked about people like LeBron James and other people speaking up. See, that's the thing. Many Black people will not speak up, even though they sit there and see it happening to someone who looks like them. They're not going to speak up for fear of, you know, what can happen to them as a consequence and just not wanting to muddy the waters or ruffle anyone's feathers. And we saw the same thing happen with Monique. When Monique started speaking out about the pay disparity, and then they labeled her Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels. They labeled her as problematic. No one stood up for her. But then here we are over a decade later, and now we have Taraji P. Henson saying the same thing that Monique already told us over a decade ago.
But you know, here's the thing. Monique said those things, and the sad thing about that, and he's a frat brother of mine, and one thing I don't do, I don't believe in bashing and tearing down another Black man for notoriety, but it bothered me because it was public knowledge when Steve Harvey told her, forget integrity.
Right.
Forget integrity. And he said, look, we have to, and when he said we have to look out for our own because the pot is only so small. You know, we can't get in this fight with you. Well, you have just played Samuel Jackson on Candyland.
Yes,
you made
absolutely.
that statement.
That's what he did.
Okay, because you have now played the role of the spook that sat behind the door. You know, I was just with Terrence Howard 2 weeks ago, having meetings in New York, and I went to his new movie premiere showdown, and Terrence and I Terrence is suing CAA right now.
Right, I reported on that.
And we talked about it. We had breakfast together at the Mercer Hotel in New York 2 weeks ago. And Terrence and I, we got really close. And this guy's a brilliant guy. He's extremely brilliant because he's not just an actor. He's a scientist. He has all of these inventions that he's created, drones and stuff. And Terrence and I, he said, I want to hear the history of Cosby because I want to know how to tackle this, Andrew, because you're a fighter. And we spent hours together. And I broke it down to Terrence and I said, look, CAA doesn't need this problem. I said, but here's the issue with CAA. I said, now Taraji saw you launched the lawsuit, but she's not going to launch a lawsuit. She'll go out here publicly talk about it, but she's not going to launch the lawsuit because she might not ever work again. And it's already hard for a Black woman to get working in the industry. Terrence is not only suing that, he's suing Disney, he's suing Hulu, he's suing Paramount Studios because he only made $12,000 to Hustle and Flow. But you know, Terrence said to me one thing. He said, Andrew, you know why I'm doing this? He said, because all of my peers, he said, from what's happening to Jonathan Major, he said, when my ex-wives tried to accuse me of being an abuser and all these things, everybody just believed it.
Yep.
And he was like, I'm doing this, Andrew, because for Black people. He said, I don't care if I never work again. And he said, that's why I'm sitting down with you right now, because I don't care. I just want somebody in this fight with me. And if we had more of those mentalities, Terrence, and then I'll never forget, we was talking on Christmas Day, Terrence and I. He said, Andrew, all we are in Hollywood, every entertainer, we're prostitutes. We're emotional prostitutes. They pimp us to create an emotion that they can sell to the public, and the public feeds into that character or their emotion that we're delivering.
Absolutely.
He said, we're just emotional prostitutes, man. He said, I'm more than an actor. This guy's a brilliant mathematician. This guy spoke before Oxford University about his science projects. The point is, when they see your intelligence and you wake up and you refuse to drink the Kool-Aid anymore, that's when you become the problem, Queen.
Right. I absolutely agree.
That's when we become the problem. And I refuse. I born and raised in a civil rights state. I represented the SCLC, King's organization, for 14, 15 years. I graduated from Miles College, where Martin Luther King Jr. used to have his meetings in the bottom basement of Miles College, where Fred Shuttlesworth is a graduate of Miles College, and Reverend Shuttlesworth had the pleasure to be in his company a number of times. That's what the Birmingham International Airport is named after. It's called the Shuttlesworth Airport, named after Fred Shuttlesworth, who was the outlaw of the civil rights movement, who told King that if the movement was failing in Georgia, and he said, if you don't come to Alabama to save this movement, I'm going to have a press conference and tell everybody you're a farce.
Oh, really?
And so King comes to Birmingham, and then the letter from the Birmingham jail happens, and then the march in Selma. And I tell anybody, in order to, fight anything in life, you have to know the history. You can't win no battle without knowing the history of anything you choose to get into. You got to know the history. If you choose to have a podcast or a YouTube show, you got to know the history and know, okay, how can I equate this and get this monetized? You got to study the history of it. Anything that you touch in life to be successful, you got to know the history. I tell every person today, by representing those entities and working with the NAACP and representing them for a number of years, and having Dick Gregory's Lifetime Achievement Award sitting back here on my mantle, and he gave to me, and I was like, Mr. Gregory, why you giving? He said, just hold it for me. Because he said, I never met nobody like you. And he got on the phone and told Mr. Cosby, hey man, this is the baddest N-word on the planet. He's the only one he's the only one. He said, Bill, he's the only one that's going to get you out of this. And Dick Gregory words rang true. And so I pick up that water and I touch it every so often, because every hand I touch, every time I touch Mr. Cosby's hand, every time I touch Dick Gregory's hand, or every renowned figure, I'm always touching somebody else's hand. Martin Luther King's hand, Malcolm X's hand. Where I touch Shuttlesworth, where I touch Minister Farrakhan's hand and sat to his right side at his table in his home in Chicago. I touched Elijah Muhammad's hand. And I could have possibly sat in the chair that Muhammad sat in.
Right.
So how can you be in the midst of greatness, of our Black greatness, and not do what I do, and not fight for our people, and not tell our story?
Absolutely.
Then if I don't, I'm making a mockery out of us, and out of those true foot soldiers who paved the way for us to be doing what we're doing today. So it's a pleasure and honor, to take this beating, because it won't be a beating for long, because eventually I will have the whip. And I did get the whip, because I used the whip to hit those prison doors and walk Bill Cosby to freedom.
That's right. Absolutely.
And we'll continue to do that. And as I told Terrence, I'm on this ride with him and on this wave with him to help him. I received an amazing call last month. It was a beautiful call from attorney Willie Gary. I saw his movie, The Burial, and I just called him up to say thank you.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
And I called him up and called his office, and his executive assistant, Deborah, was like, she called me 2 months later after seeing the movie. And I was in New York last month, and I get this call. And it's attorney Gary. He said, hey, you're my hero, man. And it was a beautiful call, short call, but for him, this is Willie Gary saying, you're my hero. These are the foot soldiers that we can't let their legacy die. The Willie Garys, the Fred Grays of the world. Fred Gray, Mr. Cosby, and I spoke with him last year. He was Rosa Parks' attorney. We got the Presidential Medal of Freedom for Biden. He lives right in Tuskegee, Alabama.
Okay.
And the Reverend Gray, we're fraternity brothers, and his sons, Fred Gray Jr., we're all in the same fraternity. But how could I, make a mockery of how they paved the way for Black folks to be doing what we're doing and not be in this fight? Everybody in life is going to get a Moses moment. It's just what you do with the Moses moment when you get it.
That's right. That's what counts. Now, before I close out, I want to talk for a moment about Jonathan Majors and his case, because I thought he was basically railroaded. At the end of the day, they didn't want some of the things that the young woman accusing him, Grace Jabari, they didn't want some of those things to come out. And then they made a deal with her that she wouldn't be prosecuted.
Well, look, Jonathan, this guy, if you look at the films that he's done on Netflix thus far, this guy was a rising star. And they saw Jonathan Majors in a position to say, you know what, we need to figure out a way how to sour him, sour his legacy, sour his stardom. And unfortunately, I always said Megan Good by his side changed everything for him. I think she gave him the grounds to say, no, I'm not this horrible person that they painted me out to be. But it just shows the history of America. A white woman would never be prosecuted for lying on a Black man.
Absolutely.
And we saw it with Carol Dunham. Look what she did to Emmett Till.
Right.
And so, this woman who made these allegations up against Jonathan Major, and this guy literally called the police trying to get her out of his car.
And ran from her to boot.
Ran from her. But that's as his attorney said, and I love his attorney's closing arguments, what she said, this is the reason why black men are afraid to call the cops today. Because when we call the police, you guys don't come to our aid when we're saying we're in trouble. You come to the midst of our trouble to make sure we never speak again. You come to ruin us and to destroy us and to murder us. And I look at Jonathan Majors, and I think, you know, for his PR people to walk away from him, you know, for his agent to drop him, this was already in the makings. It didn't happen on the day it happened with Majors. It had already happened. What we don't know, who did you say no to? Because no is a very dangerous word.
It absolutely is. In Hollywood.
No is a dangerous word. So we don't know who Jonathan Majors said no to.
Right.
And that's, you know, so what's next for him? I dear friend of mine, Lindsay Davis, and Lindsay and ABC News has been just forthright on every level with putting the facts out and the truth about everything. I've given it with Cosby, even R. Kelly, and I've got Lindsay some big interviews over the years. To interviews from the founder of Papa John's, you name it, I've got some big interviews. But Lindsay scored the exclusive interview with Jonathan Majors. And I thought she did a great job in trying to, you know, to solidify who he is as a person, as a man, and for people to get to know him. Now, you know, I think this is the time now with Jonathan Majors. I know it's hard to do, but you got a lot of black publicists out here now, Jonathan Majors. You got a lot of black agents out here. You know, quit going. I know it's hard to not go to that world of Hollywood, to the big boys, but go to the grassroots agencies, go to the boutique agencies and the boutique PR firms out here, and say, you know what? You guys turn your back. Start teaming up with people and do your own independent stuff. You know, you should have enough resources to put stuff out here and to say, I'm going to give somebody else a shot who believes in me, who looks like me. This is a pivotal time for Jonathan Majors. If he would, and if his mind is in that realm of thinking. I know you know, since this is over, you want to get back to work, but you haven't been sentenced yet.
Right.
You know, and God forbid it, but I hope he gets, you know, more than likely, I hope he gets probation of some sort. But still, that verdict is still hanging on over your head for the rest of your life. Right.
And it's really crazy because I've never heard of a case where someone was convicted for defending themselves and accidentally, supposedly injuring the person they're defending themselves against.
Well, but it only happens when a black man, like I just said earlier in your show, they have always used a white woman to destroy a black man.
Absolutely.
And look, I'm not against you date who you want to date. I'm not against anybody dating, but if you really want to, hey, we have a melting pot of women in our race, and so it just shows you that when the Beckys of the world can't get their way, and they can't get their way with you, and the moment you say no to them,
then this is what can happen.
This is what can happen. This is the reality of the world that we live in, and this is not new. You know, Queen.
That's right.
They always want to say that we're using the race card. No, they used the race card when they put us on that ship. They used the race card when they drafted the Constitution minus the amendments.
That's right.
They created the race card. We didn't create it.
Absolutely.
But the moment we defend ourselves against somebody that looks opposite of us, our oppressor, then we're bringing race into it.
Right.
You know, he shouldn't put his hand on this woman. Well, okay, how do I defend myself? Do I let her just scratch my eyes out?
Right.
You know, when do I just not, you know, there's a thing called self-defense.
And he
So-
literally ran and she chased after him, which
But-
shows that she had no fear of him.
No, she never had any fear of him. But
None.
the whole deal is that it's a bigger symbolism to her running chasing him.
Mm-hmm.
When she chased him, what she said is that you will never be clean of me. I am going to be the dirt that follows you and dirty you up.
Mm-hmm.
And she dirtied him up.
Yeah, that's what she did.
And you know, I hope I hope that Jonathan rebounds, because this guy's a phenomenal actor.
He really is.
And he is super talented. And you know, I look forward to seeing more of his work out here. And somebody should give him work. Somebody should be willing to represent this brother who don't make it about money. Tell
Right.
Jonathan Majors, hey, look, I know you might not, you just defended yourself. You had to pay lawyers to defend you. I don't know what's coming in. You probably haven't made that strike of gold yet. But I tell you what, I'll get on this ride with you and represent you until you get your next project, and then you pay me a percentage.
Right.
Because it could be, you know, I tell a lot of boutique firms out here who look like me, look, it could be that next opportunity that helps boost your firm. You don't always have to get the person at the top.
That's right.
You know, get the person as they're going to the top, or it doesn't matter if Hollywood casts them down. That's the person you want to grab, because now you become the underdog, and you get to become the person to say, hey, I rebranded them and help their career survive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, this is why Cat Williams said that he's afraid of white women. Okay.
Well, you know, Cat Williams, like I said, Cat Williams brought up, he put out all of the problems that we know exist in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they exist. What he did for Melba Moore, I did something similar for Melba Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Melba was the 50th anniversary of the bombing of the 4 little girls, and Cosby came up with this idea of Mr. Cosby of I should produce a play. So I did produce a play called The 4 Little Golden Girls. I was the executive producer of it.
Okay.
And at the time, I brought Mr. Cosby in for the 50th anniversary and the cast of the Cosby Show in a Different World to hold a panel. It was called the Education Entrepreneur Summit. I had Joy-Ann Reid from MSNBC as the moderator, because Mr. Cosby, every time he did a panel, he always wanted Joy to moderate it.
Okay.
So I had on that panel, cast of the Cosby Show. I had State Representative Randall Gaines of Louisiana on the panel, Rick Wade, Obama's former senior advisor, and attorney Benjamin Crump. And we're all fraternity brothers in Omega Psi Phi. So I had them on the panel as well here in Birmingham for the 50th anniversary. And what we did on that panel, Mr. Cosby, he gave me the idea about the play. So he had Stu Gardner and Arthur Lissy to come into Birmingham. They developed the music for the play because they developed the music for the Cosby Show.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, Mr. Cosby, I don't have anyone to, a name to star in it. He said, go get, he called her Muscles. And I said, who is Muscles? He said, Melba Moore. And I didn't know the history that he helped raise Melba's daughter.
Okay.
When she went into financial trouble, she lived in Mr. Cosby's New York home, and he put Melba's daughter through school. And his youngest daughter, Evan, and Melba's daughter, Melba lives in LA, and she stays at the Cosby's house from time to time in their LA home. Okay. And so he said, get Melba Moore. So I brought Melba to Birmingham, Alabama. And Miles College, my alma mater, was one of the sponsors of the play. And Dr. French, who's the former president of Miles, who's now the president of Clark University, he helped sponsor the play through Miles's efforts. And Melba stayed in Birmingham for a month, and Mr. Cosby said, Andrew, pay her dearly. And I paid Melba $30,000. And we got her, we went and purchased her a wardrobe, clothing, hairstylist. He said, look, I need her to feel like the queen that she really is. So that's my Melba story, and what Kat has done, with helping her get her start on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I commend him because she's a talent she won an actual Tony for Pearl.
Mhm. Oh, I love Pearlie. I was just about to bring that up. I loved it.
She won a Tony.
Yes.
And you know what Cat Williams said about a lot of people in the business. Hey, you know, we know it to be true. You know, I know Ricky Smiley very well. Ricky, when Ricky was trying to get his comedy career off the ground, I worked for ABC Television here, and Ricky used to bring his tapes to the TV station so everybody could edit them to help him get bookings on comedy shows. You know, so but what I don't ever want to do, I understand Kat's reasoning for doing it. I don't ever want to go out publicly, and we have enough people tearing us down as Black men, because you will never see George Clooney or Tom Cruise go on the Shay Shay show and talk about, you know, who did them wrong and who didn't do them right. You won't ever see that. And this is not criticizing Kat. I'm just saying, Kat, he's self-made. This guy is making probably what, $500,000 a show. And what I love about him, he leaves money behind in cities. Right now in Birmingham, he has 3 shows sold out here in Alabama that he's going to be doing in Mobile, Montgomery, and Birmingham. But Kat is a phenomenal guy. And the reason why I say that, because I stand on that foundation of never tearing us down for them. 2 years ago, Faison Love would tell you this. He went on Vlad TV, and Vlad made a lie up about me, saying that I told him that if he want to get Bill Cosby on his platform, that he had to bring me on first. I never said that. So I kept all of my text messages, and he read them to Faison, and Faison said on his show, Andrew needs to be disciplined. Now, that was a moment for me to go out publicly and attack Faison, my brother. I didn't do that. Kara Dangerous called me up with her show. She asked me to come on and talk about it. She said, "You're a grown man." And Faison said, "You need to be disciplined." I said, "Kara, I want to read every text message on your show live that I have from Vlad." And I sent Faison the show. Mr. Cosby said, "Send him the show." I sent him the show. Faison said, "Brother, I'm sorry and I apologize." Because that's how men work things out.
Right.
And, you know, it's a shame that Black men in Hollywood, we're out here trying to tear each other down when we should. It's only a few of us at the top. So if Cat Williams feels this way, why don't y'all go to Cat Williams and apologize to Cat and say, "Hey, man, sorry for stealing your material. Sorry for doing this." No, because the oppressor is telling the mainstream people, "Now y'all got to fire back at him because we'll book you on the show." As soon as that slap happened with Will Smith, Chris Rock and his brother Tony Rock got booked out shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, they did.
They always make money off of our fights. We don't make the kind of money that they make.
Right.
That's all that I'm saying.
I get it. But here's the thing for me, Andrew, because I feel like I'm a little bit like Cat Williams when it comes to calling people out for certain things. Some things, you know, if you're somebody I know and you do something, well, I'll come and have a conversation with you. If you're someone who I feel like is an enemy, someone that's a foe, and you do something, I will call you out, you know, because, and especially when it comes to your intellectual property. People stealing your jokes to boost their own career because they have a bigger audience and you're an upcoming person, that's just low down. And for me, I don't want a conversation with you after you do that. I don't want you to say I'm sorry, because sorry's not going to give me back the money that you potentially took out of my pocket when you put money in your own by using my material. That's just how I feel. Now, that's how I feel. You know,
I agree with you, but I think, look, people have been stealing material from the beginning of time. When you look at the Richard Pryor's, Red Fox of the world, Cosby, Nipsey Russell, all of these guys, man, these were iconic comedians. And when these things started happening and people talked about stealing jokes, I remember having this conversation because somebody had put out that Kevin Hart has people to show up at comedy clubs and sit in the audience and steal materials all around the U.S. He pays people to do that for him.
Mm-hmm.
And this came out maybe 6 years ago. And Mr. Cosby said to me, he said, Andrew, let me tell you what makes a great comedian. He said, you know how I got my material? He said, sometimes I just go sit on the subway and ride the subway for 3 days. And he said, I'll just ride the subway sometimes for 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's always somebody doing something, or the bus.
Right.
They're doing something so funny, and you develop a joke out of that material.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so comedy is around us 7 days out the week, 24 hours out the day. Comedy is around us. He said, you could watch somebody in a restaurant trip and fall, and you could turn it into a joke.
Right.
But I agree with Cat Williams for calling people. I don't disagree with that. So now my thing is, where's the solution now?
Well,
now we have to have the solution. And the solution is now, okay, for people to come forward and say, look, yeah, this happened, but how can I recoup from what you did to me?
Well, it looks like Cat has pretty well recouped. But but here's the thing.
Right.
It's the principle of the matter. Like, okay, let me say this, okay, because I have people do that to me all the time. Okay, and there is this one particular person, Tisa Tales. I'm gonna call her name. Now, I've been calling her out because she steals my content. She does it all the time. Matter of fact, just this morning, I did a video, and she copied the entire video like an hour or so later. She used the same video. Now, for my people in the chat, you all remember this morning when I talked about Oprah, Taraji P. Henson, Gabrielle Union, and Vivica Fox. She went and did the same exact story, used the exact same video clips that I used for Oprah and Vivica Fox, and the same talking points. Now, she feels free to do this because she has over 200 and something thousand subscribers, a much bigger platform, because all she talks about is celebrity gossip. I talk about celebrity gossip sometimes, but I most talk about, social injustices and things like that. So my channel is shadow banned. Okay, so I don't get the views that she gets. So she feels like because she has a bigger platform, she can just take my whole content and then use it for herself. And so I have a problem with that. Now, here's the thing. I may not have said anything about her until she went on her platform and tried to accuse me of copying her. Now, see, that's another thing people do when they steal your stuff. They'll put it out there, especially if they have a larger platform. They'll put it out there that you're copying them. And so people will believe it because they have a bigger platform. So if you don't call these people out, and then people see you doing the same material and they're not looking at who posted it first, well, they'll absolutely believe those things. And I just find it also egregious at the end of the day. So I call people like that out. They need to be held accountable. When you're out here making your doing your comedy routines or whatever you're doing, and you're stealing people's material that they work for, because to me, that's lazy. That's people who don't want to go out here and do the work. Like you said, Mr. Cosby would sit on the subway for 3 to 7 hours gathering ideas for his material. That's what someone who's authentic will do. They will put in the work to get their own material, so they don't have to copy anyone else. And that's the same thing I do. I go deep digging. I look for research, different things. I get receipts. And then someone who's lazy, they don't want to do all of that work. So what are they going to do? They'll just copy whatever I put out. So that's annoying for me. And it's a problem for me.
No. Look, and I don't disagree with you. I don't debate you on that. I just think that, cheating has been going on since the beginning of time. People have been plagiarizing. People have been taking people quotes and using it as their quotes.
Exactly.
But I think what happens, though, your authentic self will always show, because whether they delivered that joke and they got some laughs on it, they cannot deliver it the way you're delivering it. And,
that's true.
And here's the thing, the way I look at it, no one can deliver your lines better than you can deliver your lines. Because why? They was destined and designed just for you.
Absolutely.
Your show, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, is your show. It's your presence. It's your look. No one can take that away. They can't steal your identity. They might be able to steal your credit card identity for a little while, but they can't steal who you are. because
Right.
they don't sound like you. When people walk in the room, oh, I know that voice. That's your voice. You know, so yeah, they stole Cat's stuff, but now Cat got sellout shows all over the country just because of that interview. So at the end of the day, you have redeemed your receipts, and now you're cashing your receipts in. And based on that, we're in on the real queen of receipts. And thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. It has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on here.
No, it's a pleasure. And you know, keep shining and keep being bright. And one thing I could tell you, you have brought a lot of joy to my heart today. Because, you know, not just because of having me on, I could do anybody's show, but just being on somebody's show who has the integrity and the morals and values as you do, and you present that well. So no one can steal that away from you, and you have a blessed day. Okay.
Thank you. You do the same, beloved. I appreciate you.
All right.
All right, everyone. You all enjoy the rest of this day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.
Amen. Peace.
All right.
Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got